In our top stories tonight, Barbados highlights the need for CARICOM-U.S. cooperation for mutual benefit. The vaccine rate is among several factors being considered to determine when face-to-face classes will resume. Discussions continue to lift vending in Barbados to another level. And in sports, Ruston Chase prepping for a possible call to the World Cup starting 11.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom. Thank you so much for joining us. In our top story tonight, Barbados has stressed the need for the U.S. and CARICOM to work together on common challenges. The message was conveyed by Prime Minister Mia Motley as she met with Vice President Kamala Harris at the Eisenhower Executive Office building in Washington, D.C. The first female vice president of the United States meeting with the first female prime minister of Barbados did not go unnoticed. Pictures taken from the Facebook page of government's economic advisor Kevin Greenidge show the high-level officials gathered for the talks. During the meeting, Prime Minister Motley outlined what she considers as common challenges for CARICOM countries and the United States, including the COVID-19 pandemic and security threats. The Barbadian leader welcomed the donations made to the Caribbean to assist in the fight against COVID-19 as she pushed the message of vaccine equity.
The world perhaps has never been more precariously placed in decades than it is now, and to the extent that we can cooperate and work together with respect to fighting the pandemic, for fighting the climate crisis, for fighting security threats, and for promoting prosperity as a basis for the engagement of all of us, then I believe that we can go forward. I'd like to thank on behalf of not just Barbados, but the Caribbean community, the donations made by the government and people of the United States of America with respect to the vaccines. They were timely. I'm hopeful we will receive the others soon. This battle is real for us in the Caribbean.
On the issue of climate change, Ms. Motley told the U.S. Vice President, although the CARICOM region is not responsible, member states are still struggling to adapt.
We're also conscious that as we go to Glasgow, that there is a distinct risk, regrettably, that the world might not make the 1.5 degrees that we need to survive in the region. If that happens, then the conversation has to change seriously to be about adaptation, because we have to adapt to that new reality, which can literally be upon us anywhere from 12 to 20 years. And to that extent, therefore, you're dealing with a region that has been constantly evolving and constantly responding to one-size-fits-all prescriptions, from the establishment of the WTO that precluded us from being able to benefit from special and preferential treatment, to today, where on this climate crisis battle, we are on the front line.
Meanwhile, Vice President Harris agreed the world is interconnected and interdependent, more so than ever before.
We take very seriously, as the United States, our membership as neighbors in the Western Hemisphere. And it is in that spirit that we do the work that we do together, including the work we will do to continue to address the COVID-19 pandemic. We've already donated, I think, over 1 million doses of vaccine to the region, with a promise of 3 million more at least. The work that we are doing together is to strengthen the economy of the region. You and I briefly spoke about that before we walked in here, and that'll be the subject of our discussion this afternoon. And then, of course, what we can do to assist in our collective determination to make sure that the people of our countries are able to live in a way that they are able to prosper and be safe.
Vice President Harris has pledged to work on strengthening the U.S. relationship with CARICOM. 5 people succumbed to COVID-19 yesterday. 3 of the 5 deaths were previously reported. Among them, a 50-year-old woman who died at the Harrison Point Isolation Facility and a 73-year-old woman who died in the Accident and Emergency Department of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Both women were Barbadians and unvaccinated. The other death previously reported on was a fully vaccinated 49-year-old man who passed away after spending 5 days in isolation at Harrison Point. And today we learned a 92-year-old man also died while in tertiary isolation at the Queen's College facility, where he spent 8 days. He was fully vaccinated. Additionally, a 56-year-old man who was unvaccinated succumbed to the virus after spending 2 days in primary isolation at the Harrison Point facility. The death toll from COVID-19 now stands at 108. The COVID-19 pandemic has made it tougher for the visually impaired as their touch ability has been taken away by the protocols. Challenges facing the community were brought to the fore this World Sight Day. Hyacinth Stout, a member of the visually impaired community, explained some of the difficulties they're encountering as most of them are now confined to their homes.
Right now, as we are unable to go out, usually when we are walking, the person would have to hold you. So with COVID now, it's very challenging for that to happen. So we stay at home and we would use the telephone to make our orders and such like. It is quite expensive, but that is the way it is. There's nothing else we can do right now. It's very difficult because the income is not there. You still have bills to be paid, food to buy. So it's very challenging for that person who is not working.
Barbados' funding of social protection programs is one of its most important investments. That assertion from Minister in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment, Marcia Cadell. The MP was speaking during an online community branch meeting of the St. Michael's South Central constituency, which she represents. She says government continues to provide and improve on the services delivered to those most in need.
I know that the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs is doing a lot of work to be able to transition that ministry and those departments and agencies into a kind of a family services and case management approach that is more responsive, that has more resources to be able to respond. But I do want to acknowledge those officers, the minister, and all the people who have been working to improve those services, and to assure you that the quest to improve them continues, because what we're seeing is that investment in social protection, what COVID has shown us is that it is perhaps one of the most important investments. Investment in people is perhaps one of the most important investments that we can make.
The point was supported by Special Advisor to the Prime Minister on Poverty Alleviation, Corey Lane. He told the meeting since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been a rapid expansion of Barbados' social protection programs, which have catered to about 4,309 families. The Ministry of Education is awaiting word from the Ministry of Health before a decision is made on a return to face-to-face classes. This disclosure was made at a virtual interactive session with primary school students and parents by education officials. According to Minister Santia Bradshaw, while parents and students are eager to return to the classroom, it depends on several factors, including the vaccination rate and adequate protective measures.
We had set some targets with the Ministry of Health that we wanted to get at least 70% of our teachers across the entire school population vaccinated, and that included the ancillary staff. The private schools have taken a position that, they have encouraged the vaccination of their students and certainly the teachers, and in most cases, they're ready to go. We have said, let's just hold, let's see if we can put a couple more layers of protection for students, and let's source the sanitizing stations within each of the classrooms. Let us also look at exploring testing of students on a regular basis, so that gives another layer of comfort, certainly to teachers and certainly to parents as well.
Minister Bradshaw also addressed the issue of mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations for eligible children.
The regulations presently under the Health Services Act already provide that students cannot enter school unless they are vaccinated. And there are a series of, within the regulations, there are a series of vaccines that are identified. The COVID-19 vaccine will be added to that regulation, and the amendments are certainly being made by the Ministry of Health as we speak. So eventually you will have to have the COVID-19 vaccine once it is available for students under 12 to be able to return to school.
The Barbados Tourism Marketing Incorporated is promoting the idea of an identification card for vendors, saying it will improve the customer service experience. Chief Product Development Officer Marcia Aline told the Joint Select Committee on Vending customer service is important as this type of commercial activity is taken to the next level.
One of the key things that we want to identify in customer service that you should learn and know the customer's name and also introduce yourself. That is 101 in terms of wonderful and excellent customer service. And so if we are taking the vendors into the 21st century, we want to have state-of-the-art type of experiences where you have Wi-Fi and also other type of activity going on. Wouldn't we want to ensure that the customer service is at the point where it is, renowned, not just in Barbados, but around the world?
MP for St. Michael East, Trevor Prescott, is however concerned about the deculturizing of vending so that players can be embraced in the tourism industry.
In other words, a vendor would have to behave in a specific manner in order to become suitable to be included or embraced within the tourist industry. And then you lose the uniqueness of our people because you want to make an adaptation to what we consider is socially acceptable. And I feel, sir, that we have to be very careful because we are trying to say, look, what you are doing without people just imposing on you their views about what is criminal and what is not criminal. We believe that what you're doing, that we all accept what you're doing with a sense of pride, and we want you to feel equally as dignified.
During the Joint Select Committee meeting, we also heard that local efforts to transition Barbados to a cashless society have the support of Independent Senator Althea Wiggins. She says many Barbadians, including young people, have welcomed it, and she believes it will benefit the nation's vendors.
To avoid the whole question of stealing or getting into trouble, somebody sticking them up after they're packed up at night. So I think that that's one of the options that can be introduced to Barbon and a lot of the wayside vendors, where as soon as you finish your transaction, you just go on your phone and you shoot the money to them and they have the money immediately. So I think that is a step in the right direction.
Minister of Tourism Senator Lisa Cummins is of the view proposals in the draft legislation on vending give the sector the dignity it deserves.
Putting the Wi-Fi that you've spoken about, rightfully, Minister, in place so that there is the ability to then use cashless systems and also to use technology to integrate a lot of the current modalities for doing business into vending will go a long way, not just in giving the dignity and being developmental, but then formalizing, which for economic purposes has not necessarily been captured in national accounting.
The Residential Waste Collection Improvement Project of the Sanitation Service Authority has already hit a snag. Some of the special waste bins assigned to homeowners in the north of the island as part of the first phase of the rollout have been stolen. The project was launched in late September with waste bins, while the recycling bins are expected to be phased into the program later. While stressing the tremendous progress with over 6,000 household bins delivered so far, SSA Public Relations Officer Carl Padmore is concerned about the theft.
We are concerned that persons are removing from the premises of others the bins. We want to serve notice and say to them, look, these bins can be tracked. We have a system in place that the bins can be tracked through a code system that we have. So we would know if the bin goes from lot number 1 and it is now in Christchurch. We know how we can find it. the bin is tied to the water meter. So once you are paying a legitimate residential, not commercial, residential water bill, we have tied a bin to your water meter, so we can track that. So when we deliver, when we are saying we, as I said, ProSource dealing with the distribution, when they deliver a bin, they tag it to the water bill. So we can go to a computer system right now and see if you had received one already.
Well, this information just coming to hand. A total of 320 people were identified as COVID-19 positive yesterday, October 13th, among the 2,551 tests conducted by the Best dos Santos Public Health Laboratory. Of the 133 males and 187 females who make up the new cases, 69 people are under the age of 18 and 251 are 18 years and older. There are 578 people in isolation facilities and 2,519 in home isolation. Confirmed COVID-19 cases recorded from March last year stand at 12,105. That is 5,839 males and 6,266 females. The Public Health Lab has conducted 350,270 tests. Under the National Vaccination Program for COVID-19, the total number of people with at least one dose is 143,661, or 62.9% of the eligible population. The total number of people who are fully vaccinated is 114,500, that is, and 70, and that is 42.3% of the total population, or 50% of the eligible population. The eligible population represents those people who are 12 years and older. Sports time now, and we head on over to the sports studio. We say good evening to Anne-Marie Burke. Anne-Marie, what's big in sports tonight?
Well, good evening, Lisa. We're all building up to the start of the T20 World Cup, and batting all-rounder Roston Chase could be making his West Indies T20 debut during the Cricket World Cup, which gets going on Sunday. Chase, who is a staple on the West Indies Test team, is relishing the opportunity to feature in the shortest format, especially coming off an excellent performance in this year's Caribbean Premier League. The transition, he says, is not a difficult one, as his Test experience aids in his mindset and approach to T20 games.
The Test cricket builds your mental toughness, and it helps you to read situations better when you come to this format of the game. Yeah, because I find Test cricket is a lot harder on the body and mental as well. So when you come to the T20, it's a bit short, a lot shorter, more fast-paced. I think that decision-making tends to be a little easier in the T20 format. So yeah, I think that is a good. I made a good transition in that because of the Test cricket, because it helps you to read the game a lot better.
Given that the windy side is littered with a number of power hitters, there's a thought that Chase could be a strong reinforcement in the middle order, quite like the role Marlon Samuels played in the last World Cup. If called into a starting 11, Chase can picture himself in that anchoring position.
I see myself playing a similar role. It's the role that I played for the St. Lucia franchise for the last 2 years, where I just come in most likely after the power play and just knock it around and pick up the ones and twos and get the occasional boundary when the ball's in my area to score. So it's an easy role for me. I like that role. And with the power hitting guys that we have in this team, my role should be just to really give them the strike and let them do their thing. But if the ball is in my area, I would put it there.
There's a call for the future of sport on the island to be critically assessed and a way forward charted, especially as all the stakeholders are grappling with the fallouts due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. This call comes from Dr. Melissa Branford-Jones, president of the Barbados Boxing Association. Like all contact sports here on the island, boxing has really felt the negative effects of COVID-19 restrictions and lockdowns. From cancellation of their major competitions to athletes struggling to maintain their training and physical and mental health, it has been quite the challenge. But the National Federation, led by Dr. Melissa Bamford-Jones, has been doing all they can to keep their members engaged.
For boxing, as a small federation that traditionally has enrolled at-risk young people, the situation is dire. We've tried to help ourselves. We have engaged our athletes as much as we can, given the circumstances. Our Athletes Commission, an organization mandated by AIBA, our international governing body, in collaboration with our Coaches Commission, has been developing and will soon roll out an online training program for our athletes. The BOA has been instrumental in keeping our minds engaged and educated by offering several online seminars for all federations, athletes, coaches, and other interested persons.
The international world of sport has continued to function, with many sports still hosting their world championships. Boxing is coming up later this year, and with the local restrictions preventing our elite boxers from sparring and training, they've had to resort to looking for assistance overseas.
We've had to spend money to send athletes overseas to spar. The argument that we can bring persons here is moot because they still wouldn't be able to contact train. Jabali Breedy and Charles Cox, who are in preparation for the AIBA Men's World Championships in just a few weeks, and Kimberly Gittins, who will participate in the Women's Championships in December, have opted to attend training camps overseas in their efforts to receive sparring practice before these important competitions. Additionally, our officials are not getting the opportunity to practice their specialty.
Dr. Bamford-Jones, who recently took office as president of the Boxing Association, believes as a whole sport is in crisis, and now more than ever, it's time for all stakeholders to come together and chart a way forward.
Unfortunately, if the survival of sport during this pandemic is not seen as a critical issue, it will not be treated as such, and the effects will be far-reaching, immeasurable, and regrettable. Regarding COVID-19 and the approach in the world of sport, sports people need to get together with or without the government and figure out how we are going to live through this pandemic. Find a way to help ourselves, push the envelope, grab the bull by the horns. COVID-19 will be around for a long time. Are we prepared to continue this way indefinitely? We need to address the elephants in the sports room. Vaccination for COVID-19, vaccine hesitancy, and COVID-19 testing. We need to start asking the hard questions and approaching the topics that nobody seems to want to talk about, at least publicly or openly, because they have been so controversial. We can't expect to return to consistent sport unless we come together and discuss the hard topics. A strategic plan needs to be developed to address this directly. Will we approach the second year of this pandemic with the same apparent coolness? I dare say that we cannot afford to do so. The athletes will leave. The officials will lose their skills. Supportive members will be frustrated and become inactive. It will be harder to rekindle the interest and enthusiasm in the various sports. The consultations need to be goal-oriented, targeted, and brave, and involve all those who can help fulfill each identified need. For the love of sport, let's get on with it.
The Business Report is brought to you by Sky Mall, serving you to make your shopping experience pleasurable.
Government has unveiled plans to erect a container park in St. Philip. Housing Minister Dr. William Duguid made the revelation during a press conference yesterday as he provided an update on the arrival of 150 emergency houses coming from China. Dr. Duguid says they are expected on island around November 20th. He says the containers the light gauge steel houses arrive in will then be put into use.
What a lot of people do not know is we're building a container park. So we're building actually at 6 Roads now a container park, so all of the containers will go to the container park. Once the houses come out, we will have that container park then to use as storage for government. And that's an additional benefit that we're getting as well from this project.
Duguid also provided an update on the Home Ownership Providing Energy or HOPE Direct program. He says there are currently about 40 houses at foundation stage at Lancaster and St. James, and he anticipates they should be at ring beam stage within the next 3 weeks.
We're also looking to start very shortly at Fustic to do another 86 houses, I believe, up there under Hope Direct. And then from there, we're looking as well at Todd's in the constituency of St. John to be able to do another, I think, 200 odd houses for Hope Direct. But there have been thousands of applications for Hope Direct. And this is why I will very shortly be launching a new project called Hope. I'm going to give the name for the first time, called Hope Advance. So Hope Advance will be those people making 2,000 Barbados dollars or less.
And the Roman Catholic Diocese of Bridgetown has stepped forward to assist with the rebuilding efforts. The church, represented by Roman Catholic priest Father Omaris Valman, made a donation of building materials to the housing ministry.
We have donated about $30,000 in repair work, the lumber and galvanage, to relief efforts in lieu of the Hurricane Elsa and the freak storm. One of our benefactors, they were very concerned and wanted to help in as much as possible. So the church is always there, ready and willing to help out in relief efforts, and this is just one of the many ways.
And Minister in the Ministry of Housing, Peter Phillips, thanked the church for its assistance.
From north to south, east to west, Barbados, we had damages all over. And this contribution, this donation will go a long way in helping the government. I want to thank you on behalf of the Ministry of Housing, the National Housing Corporation, of course the government and the people of Barbados for such a generous donation. And God, I know, will continue to bless you richly as you're not only speaking the word, you're also doing what the word says, reaching out and helping others who are in need at this point in time.
First Caribbean International Bank Limited has announced that its wholly owned subsidiary, First Caribbean International Bank Limited, has agreed to sell its banking assets in St. Vincent, Grenada, Dominica and St. Kitts to the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines Limited, Grenada Cooperative Bank Limited, National Bank of Dominica Limited and St. Kitts, Nevis and Anguilla National Bank Limited. Additionally, its wholly owned subsidiary, First Caribbean International Bank Cayman Limited, has agreed to sell its banking assets in Aruba to Aruba Bank NV. In a statement, First Caribbean said the transactions are all subject to regulatory approval, including from the Central Bank of Barbados, and are expected to be finalized in the coming months. Well, now we head over to the sports studio for the second half in sports. Anne-Marie, you've been waiting patiently.
Yes, Lisa, I have been. Thank you. And swimming at the Barbados Aquatic Center has been given the all clear to continue. Over the last few days, there has been a positive COVID case among the swimmers of one swim club in Barbados that took part in the Aquatic International Invitational meet last weekend. President of the Barbados Aquatic Sports Association, Lady Cheryl Ford, says there's no COVID spread at the pool as all tests to date have come back negative.
Training will continue at the Aquatic Center under strict protocols. There is no spread of COVID. As a measure of caution, we have cancelled our next competition that was scheduled for October 27th to 30th. The Barbados Aquatic Sports Association remains committed to the safety of our members, staff, and tenants. As sports practitioners, we have to respond to these matters in a guided manner and not with panic.
The Barbados Under-17 women's football team is currently in a biosecure bubble ahead of their departure on Saturday for the 2022 CONCACAF Women's Under-17 Championship at the IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida. The championship will run from October 20th to November 1st, where the Junior Lady Tridents will compete against St. Vincent and the Grenadines on October 20th, Belize on October 22nd, and Curacao on October 24th. The full team is Lisa Harding, Kagan Rouse, Destiny Bess, Jody Ruck, Ebony Atherley, Amber Sudat Seeley, Kadesha Thomas, Faith Graves, Jesse Robinson, Tekoya Hope Downs, Keturah Low Miller, Unique Cox, Raina Cummings, Ciara Blackman Oliver, Roshana Edwards, Akila Yearwood, Leah Prasad, Caitlin Smith O'Neill, Asima Aline, and Raya Dates.
Just before we go, let me remind you that you can continue following us here on TV8. You can get more news on our social media platforms as well. We're on Instagram at CBC News Barbados. We're also on Facebook at CBC News BB.BB and on our radio stations 947, 100.7 and 98.1 The One. That's news. Good night.
Thanks for visiting us. To get more stories like this one, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.